Hello and welcome to New Frontiers on CCTV International. I'm Ji Xiangjun in Beijing. And today we reach the final part of our major exploration of Chinese civilization. In the previous 19 episodes, we've traced the evolution of Chinese civilization since the dawn of time through an investigation of archaeological discoveries, historical sites, and cultural relics. In today's program, we reach the Qing Dynasty. In virtually every aspect of civilization, the Qing Dynasty scaled heights never before achieved in Chinese history. Its achievements covered not only the arts, but also science, farming, and ethnic policy. One major breakthrough occurred in the early 18th century when the Qing imperial court dispatched land survey teams to draw up an accurate map of Chinese territory.
It was an era in which different ethnic groups in China fused on a scale hitherto unknown, and one in which China's territory was larger than at any other time in her history. China was by this time the most populous country and the strongest economic entity in the East, and she had already produced many immortal cultural classics, among them the longest book in the world. It was also in this era that the nation's various ethnic groups reached a consensus on what constituted a national culture. This was the age of the Qing Dynasty, and during this era, Chinese civilization would reach new heights. Finally, the court survey team found the source of the Yellow River in the Bayanha Mountains. After the surveyors came back to the capital, they drew a chart indicating the many lakes at the source of the Yellow River. Only then did the supreme ruler of the land of China know that the source of the Yellow River was dotted with numerous shimmering lakes. This is the first map of the source of the Yellow River in Chinese history, and after its completion, the central government was encouraged to carry out further large-scale surveys of the empire's territory. This was the first time in the world a land survey covering such a broad territory using modern scientific instruments was conducted. It was an undertaking and achievement of pioneering significance in the history of science. The complete and accurate map of China that resulted became an important basis on which the ruler of a large country could know his domain so as to formulate better political, economic, diplomatic, and military strategies. For the first time, a ruler of China could examine his domain with the geographical conceptions of modern times. The map told him precisely where remote places such as Tibet, Xinjiang, and Taiwan Island were located. The map was a concrete depiction of a consolidated and immense country under a unified administration. As the map was displayed, it gave the Chinese who saw it self-confidence in the broad and unified country that was their nation.
就是我们这个国家分分合合，它的大的格局范围基本上没有变。它就在这么一个东亚的这么一块地方里边啊，变过来变过去，有的时候大了一点，有的时候缩小了一点，它基本格局没大变。所以由于这么一个特点呢，是我们这个边疆地区呢，历史上的边疆地区跟现实中间边疆地区啊，大部分是历史上是我们边疆地区，现实生活中间仍然是我们边疆地区。清前期的边疆政策是成功的。正因为边疆政策成功，所以清在到康乾盛世的时候，我们才能够使得我们中国的这个疆域这个领土疆域能够 由发展到最后的奠定。
During the era of the Qing Dynasty, different ethnic groups in China increased their mutual exchange on a scale never before seen, and their ethnic cultures merged to a much greater extent. In 1652, Awang Losang Jiatuo, the political and religious leader of Tibet, led more than 3,000 Tibetans to the national capital at the invitation of Emperor Xunzhi, and to accommodate them, the Qing imperial court built Shi Huang Temple. The following year, the Qing imperial court officially conferred the title Dalai Lama on Awang Losang Jiatuo, and after that, the appointment of the Dalai Lama by the central government of China became the rule that has remained in place in China to the present day. During the reign of Emperor Kangxi, the Qing imperial court conferred the title of Panchen Ardurni on the fifth Panchen Lama, and this title has been inherited by all the Panchen Lamas to follow up to the present day. Using this approach, China was able to verify and consolidate its sovereignty over Tibet. The sixth Panchen Lama, with his entourage of more than 2,000 Tibetan lamas and local government officials, traveled for a year more than 5,000 kilometers to meet with the Qing emperor in his summer resort in Chengde. In order to communicate with the Panchen Lama directly, Emperor Qianlong learned to speak the Tibetan language from living Buddha Zhangjia. After the founding of the Qing Dynasty, mutual respect and fusion of different ethnic cultures developed in a friendly and comprehensive way, and the regional leaders of Tibet submitted to the central government with resolution and sincerity. In the spring of 1691, the famous Dorlun Meeting of Allegiance was held on the grasslands north of the Great Wall in a place called Dorlun Nur. At this meeting, the chieftains of various Mongolian leagues and banners gathered in Huizong Monastery to pledge their allegiance to Emperor Kangxi. After the summer resort in Chengde was built, the Qing emperor went on an inspection tour to regions north of the Great Wall almost every year. He met with chieftains of Mongolian and Tibetan tribes and entertained them in his temporary palace in Ruhe province with a grand banquet. Emperor Qianlong said these special trips were mostly about uniting all the people and consolidating the country.
The Qing Dynasty witnessed unprecedented levels of exchange and cooperation among different ethnic groups. As a result, the whole country enjoyed a period of prosperity and stability. In the second half of the 18th century, one ethnic group, the Turgut, even returned to their ancient home in Xinjiang.
People of the Mongol tribe of Turgut originally lived in the Xinjiang region, but in the middle of the 16th century, they followed their livestock to the Volga River Valley in Russia. In the second half of the 18th century, the Turgut people decided to return to the place where the sun rises, and so about 170,000 Turguts set off along the road to the east that would take them home. The 170,000 Turgut tribespeople trekked over sheer mountains and through swiftly flowing rivers, often fighting back enemies at the same time. It was a distance of more than 5,000 kilometers, and it took them more than half a year to reach their motherland. The Qing imperial court accorded their return considerable attention, ordering local governments along the road to prepare clothes and food for them. The warm concern shown by the motherland touched the hearts of the migrating Turgut people deeply, and Emperor Qianlong too was moved. The emperor wrote an inscription to commemorate the heroic deed of the Turgut people and ordered that it be carved on a stone tablet. That tablet still stands today in a Buddhist temple in Chengde city. The chieftain of the Turgut tribe, Wuobashi, presented Emperor Qianlong with a precious sword left to him by his great-grandfather Ayu to show his loyalty to the motherland. The Qing imperial court responded by conferring on Wuobashi the title Khan, along with an official seal. The people of the Turgut tribe were relocated to the rich pasture lands at the foot of the Tian Shan Mountains in Xinjiang, and there they became devoted developers and defenders of China's frontier region.
康熙皇帝来说，乾隆皇帝也这么说，就是历史上的皇帝，历史上要抵御来自于北部的这个侵扰，建长城。他说我不建长城，我是通过跟蒙古建立联盟，在我北部建立起一个比长城还要巩固的长城。
The Qing imperial court regarded emphasis on agriculture and improvements to crop cultivation as its main policy for social and economic development. China even introduced corn and sweet potatoes from abroad, although it was only during the Qing Dynasty that these crops were planted on a large scale. In the year 1703, the imperial court asked local farmers in Ruohe province on the Bashang Plateau to grow rice on a trial basis. The experiment succeeded, and the area in the vicinity of Chengde became the largest rice-growing area in North China. Even today, rice is still a profitable crop in the region. Growing rice on farmland that was originally used to grow dry land grain crops was an innovative idea unconceivable in previous eras of China's history. Eventually, the boundary between cultivating rice and cultivating dry land grain crops disappeared thanks to technical improvements in agriculture. Meanwhile, the Qing Dynasty's integration of their own nomadic culture of northeast China with the farming civilization of the Central Plain was highly successful, with great progress in production and in society.
清朝的发展是在传统的这种汉文化的基础上，又吸收了各个少数民族的他的文化那种精华，所以使得清朝呢显现出一种就是繁荣昌盛，特别是在这个康乾盛世的时候，显示出这么一种状态。在这种情况下，老百姓能安居乐业，这个生活也比较稳定，所以呢，这个自然而然的就是在生产经济方面都会有创新就出来了。
Previous imperial courts had imposed a head tax on every male adult, but in 1712 the Qing imperial court abolished this ancient taxation policy. Instead, it collected the capitation tax on only one male member of a family. A family paid the same amount of tax no matter how many able-bodied men it had. This is the famous no tax increase on the growing population policy. "23 years later, the Qing imperial court reformed the taxation system yet again, adopting a policy known as allocating the capitation tax to the land. The core of this policy was to totally abolish the previous tax collection policy and instead collect tax according to the land one owned. This was a major change to the system of taxation in China.
这个政策的话，实际上是对普通百姓的话，特别是对贫穷百姓、丁多地少的百姓有特别大的好处，而对富啊占有大量土地的地主来说呢，他们付出的就更多一些。所以当时说这个政策有利于穷人而不利于富人。这一政策的产生了，这一政策就事实上宣布了中国持续上千年的 人口税的废除和终结。
At this time, farmers near Yuzhuan Hill on the outskirts of Beijing and in the vicinity of Tianjin began to grow an early variety of rice on a trial basis, and the area of rice paddies increased year by year. By the middle of the reign of Emperor Qianlong, the area of farmland cultivated in rice around the two cities of Beijing and Tianjin and in Hebei province exceeded 660,000 hectares. The rice harvest had become an important source of national revenue, and dependence on grain from South China had been greatly reduced. During this period, the land use rate and national grain output was raised considerably. The amount of arable land was also expanded, and the unit output of grain was higher. The total grain output exceeded that of any period in Chinese history, and more grain made it possible for the population to grow. By the middle of the reign of Emperor Qianlong, the Chinese population exceeded 200 million, and by the later years of Emperor Qianlong's reign, it exceeded 300 million, accounting for 1/3 of the world's total population. As well as this, China's total output value accounted for 1/3 of the world total. China had become the most populated nation and the strongest economy in the world. The Qing imperial court brought the floods under control and encouraged agricultural production, laying a solid foundation for economic construction and the ideological unification of the nation's various ethnic groups to ensure social stability. This period of the Qing Dynasty is referred to by historians as the prosperous age of Kangxi and Qianlong.
它是一个集大成的时代，就是说政治、经济、文化都是超越了以前隔代的一个时代。你看经济上，它应该达到了前所未有的发展的程度。它的那个乾隆时期，中国到19世纪初，中国的经济体啊，中国这个经济体啊，仍然比西方、比英国同时期的还要大，这是一个很了不起的一个辉煌。
Under Emperor Qianlong, China became the most populous country with the strongest economy in the world. The economic prosperity made it possible for folk culture to develop, and various forms of local opera began to thrive across the nation.
As the population grew, the economy prospered and more cities were built, and urban culture became richer. During the reign of Emperor Qianlong, urban culture, as represented by entertainment businesses, reached an unprecedented high. In the process, the creative power of folk culture released itself, and this can be seen in the various forms of local opera that began to thrive on stage across the nation. Such regional cultural prosperity had never been seen in previous times.
清朝的前期，在中国文化史或艺术史上一件最大的事件，一件最具革命色彩的事件，就是地方戏的崛起。之后，地方戏崛起之后，整个中国大地、中华大地，从南到北，从东到西，300-400种声腔，它开始汇聚、碰撞、融合。那时候有2个根据地，一个是北京，一个是扬州。北京和扬州作为2个重镇，就艺术史融合碰撞的重镇，最终在北京形成了个京剧。
In 1790, the Sanqing troupe, a local opera troupe renowned in areas south of the Yangtze River, came to Beijing to perform. And after that, opera culture from south of the Yangtze River began to integrate with that of the north. This integration gave birth to a new opera form, Peking opera. Peking opera assimilated all the original elements of Chinese culture carried down over more than 2,500 years through the Zhou, Qin, Han, Tang, Song, Yuan, and Ming dynasties. All previously existing poetry, song, dance, and music forms from those eras can be found in Peking opera. Peking opera is the culmination of and cream of Chinese culture and art. It has both the collective memory of ancient Chinese culture and the refreshing innovations of modern culture. Peking opera was the result of the fusion of various local opera forms. It was local and national because it contained the cultural elements from both the south and the north. Opera fans from various regions around China can feel close to Peking opera due to its roots, while at the same time they can feel the refreshing air that runs through it thanks to the opera's unique, innovative concepts. Peking opera came forth during an era when the ancient farming civilization of China reached its summit. The appearance of Peking opera was the voice of an era at a time when the country was prosperous and the people lived in peace.
京剧的诞生是整个中华民族，应该是民族的创新能力的一种结果。京剧诞生之前，任何人都没有预料到。当然呢，艺术史的规律和文化史的规律，很可能指向 冥冥之中指向了有一种东西，叫京剧的诞生。但是作为个人，没有预料到。除了康雍乾时期的所谓盛世，还有一种我觉得文化开放政策。
18 years before an opera troupe from Anhui province came to perform in Beijing, Tanyi Ge, a famous private library in the region south of the Yangtze River, sent a collection of rare books to Beijing as it had been commanded to. In 1743, the Qing imperial court built Siku Chuanshu Studio for the compilation of a great work to be entitled Complete Library of the Four Treasures. It then began to solicit books from all over the country, and Tanyi Ge Library was the first to deliver its rare books to Beijing. Tanyi Ge, a private family library, had rare books that had been collected through 8 generations, and it presented 638 of its rarest books to the imperial court. In order to ensure that the complete library of the Four Treasures would be comprehensive, the nationwide book search continued for 7 years. The gigantic collection that resulted includes meticulously selected books presented by the people, books kept in the imperial palace, and those listed in the Great Encyclopedia of Yongle of the Qing Dynasty. It consists of 79,337 volumes with 770 million Chinese characters. It took 9 years to complete. The number of scholars credited with being involved in its compilation comes to more than 3,600, and more than 3,800 scribes had to be employed. The complete library of the Four Treasures was so huge it could not at the time be printed by press, and so several thousand people were engaged to make 7 handwritten copies, each of which was kept in a different place. This largest of all collections of books from ancient China includes all the main classical works written prior to the reign of Emperor Qianlong. It is known in today's academic circles as the Great Wall of Chinese culture and the Pyramid of Oriental culture. In the early 21st century, the Chinese government printed 5 sets of the complete library of the Four Treasures. Each set weighs 1.5 tons. It took more than 600 workers 1 year and 8 months to produce them. The 5,000-year-old history of the Chinese civilization is a record of one innovation after another. It is like a piece of pure gold refined in the fire of primeval chaos, an exquisite piece of jade polished by the harsh weather through eons of time, and a bright pearl of the Chinese nation presented to the crown of the world's civilization. This culture that lit up the Dark Ages leads the Chinese nation to grow larger and stronger with each passing day. As history moves forward, it presents us with challenges, and these challenges have inspired the children of the civilization of the Yellow River to work harder, acquire more knowledge, tap more of their wisdom, and strengthen their spirit of self-reliance and innovation. The Chinese nation has a cultural tradition of tolerating foreign elements and placing emphasis on harmony. This toleration of elements from outside gave birth to a great and broad nation ready to embrace variety, and it created a brilliant civilization that grows ever stronger. The reverence of social harmony has brought forth a tradition in the Chinese nation of promoting peace and stable development. When it comes to acquiring new knowledge, the Chinese nation is endowed with a fine spirit of self-reliance and self-support, and it is this spirit that has enabled the Chinese nation to exist and to grow.
The water conservancy projects, the more efficient approach to farming, and the enlightened ethnic policies, these were key elements in the economic development achieved by the Qing government. Moreover, the adoption of Confucian principles as ideological guidelines unified the national culture and consolidated society. Well, the golden age of Qing brings us to the end of our major series about Chinese civilization, in which we've seen how, throughout 5,000 years of history, China has been at the forefront of innovation and integration. And thank you for staying with us on today's New Frontiers. I'm Qi Xiaojun from CCTV International. Bye for now.